we will move on to the next session from here, which is a special address on the topic cybersecurity amongst BIMSTEC nations, challenges and prognosis. We all know that BIMSTEC is also dealing with security issues very lately, security issues, terrorism, counterterrorism, issues like non-traditional security threats, which are now affecting all the BIMSTEC countries, is something which is bothering all the decision makers, diplomats and strategy experts. It is therefore, I think, an extremely rightful topic that we are going to discuss here. This is going to be a special address. The session will be chaired by Dr. Uttam Sinha, who is the head of the Non-Traditional Security Center, Manohar Parrikar Institute of Defense Studies and Analysis, the IDAC, to which I also can relate because of my JNU days, old friends and folks all there. And the speaker will be Lieutenant General Rajesh Panchi, who is the National Cybersecurity Coordinator, India. I hope, gentlemen, both of you are here. You're audible from our side.
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Dr. Sinha, are you audible? Are you being audible?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you are audible, sir. So thank you, both of you. And the time, I'll hand over the session to you, Dr. Sinha, and the time is unfortunately only half an hour, 12:30 to 1 p.m.
Well, thank you very much, and welcome to this special lecture on cyber security. As you all know, cyber risks are on the ascendancy and continue to rank very high among the global risks that we see. During the pandemic, we have seen a great acceleration of technology and technology adoption, but we have also seen great inequalities within and between societies, which has equally exposed cyber vulnerabilities and unpreparedness. So I think it's a timely topic, a very important topic, especially in the context of BIMSTEC cooperation. I think this is something that BIMSTEC member states would need to look at in all serious manner. I remember a few years ago that the Vivekananda International Foundation had initiated a dialogue on BIMSTEC member states cooperation on cybersecurity. A few years earlier to that, the IDSA too had launched dialogues on cybersecurity. So it's a topic which does interest the region, and I'm very glad that the ICS has picked this topic. And we have with us an expert, Lieutenant General Dr. Rajesh Pant, who's had a distinguished service in the Indian Army for over 4 decades and served in the Signal Corps. And he is presently tenanting the appointment of National Cyber Security Coordinator in the National Security Council Secretariat. So, General Pant, I welcome you to this session. The session, unfortunately, is only for half an hour, and I'm sure you'll structure your talk accordingly. And if we do have some questions at the very end, we'll be most welcome to take it, and I'll ask you to respond to that. General Pant, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. and greetings of the day to all the attendees in Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, India, Myanmar, Nepal, and Thailand. I find about 42 attendees. So my best wishes to all those who are listening to this program, and compliments to the organizers for organizing this International Web Symposium on BIMSTEC, a vehicle for growth and development. At the outset, I would like to compliment the organizers for including cybersecurity as part of the technical session, especially in the month of October, which some of you may be aware is internationally celebrated as the National Cyber Security Awareness Month. The theme for this year is "Do Your Part, #BeCybersmart." And the reason why this theme is so important is because in the entire kill chain of cyber, the human being still remains the weakest link of the chain. And when we see the spectrum of cybercrime from individuals losing money as we speak, to data thefts, to some large-scale attacks which are uh, backed by non-state actors, etc., we find that the initial attack always starts with somebody who's clicked on a link which downloads the malware. And then, of course, there is a lateral spread and a escalation of privileges, and the depending on the weapon, the cyber attack takes place. So this is a very important aspect, and the World Economic Forum, as some of you may be aware, has said that cybercrime is the biggest man-made risk to economic growth, and all our nations are affected with that. In fact, there is one estimate which said that last year the total loss due to cybercrime was $6 trillion US dollars. So this is the scale of the attacks that we are talking of. And this year, the way it has started off with some huge ransomware attacks, especially in the United States, they are saying that in one estimate, they are saying that the total loss may reach up to 10 trillion this year. So, the cyber criminals are getting smarter and smarter. They belong to international syndicates. I remember there was an attack in India, one of the Indian banks in Pune about 4 years back, Cosmos Bank, where within a period of 2 hours, this was an ATM cash out attack. So within a period of 2 hours, the money was taken out from 28 different countries. 28 different countries. So that is a scale of international syndicates that are working, and the only way to counter these attacks is by international collaboration. No nation state by itself can take on these distributed criminals. You may have heard of ransomware as a service. These days, somebody is an expert in just the ingress part, somebody is an expert in the cryptocurrency part, and again all these criminals have got together and they are providing ransomware as a service. And they have a list of companies with the revenues of these companies. And they can tell you that from this company you can get so much money, and you just give them their 5-10%, and the rest of the money can be taken by you. So that is, unfortunately, what is happening in the dark web, etc. But it is good that the BIMSTEC community is charting a new path forward in such areas as cybersecurity by coming together to address the emerging security challenges emanating from cyberspace, underpinned by technological innovations and blurring of national boundaries in the cyber domain. Post the pandemic, we are at the cusp of a very challenging time with tremendous opportunities. The internet is now the backbone of every kind of work, whether it is financial or the energy sector or business or education, government. Everyone is now dependent on digitalization, and the interconnectedness of the internet, underpinned by ICT technologies and the ability to move data across borders, provides new avenues for economic development and growth. With the global advancements in technologies related to information processing, information dissemination, communications, space exploration, and others, the issues concerning cybersecurity and peaceful use of space have gained salience in the overall national security preparedness of the BIMSTEC member states. For a burgeoning economy such as all of us have, secure cyberspace is essential for the BIMSTEC member states to harness its true benefits for business development, jobs creation, technology innovation, and also to attract the investments. The BIMSTEC member states are also continuously subject to a variety of threats emanating in cyberspace from a host of state and non-state actors. The number of fraudulent activities in the banking systems have also shown an upward trend. And of course, we all recall the Bangladesh Bank heist of February 2016, in which the SWIFT system was utilized, being one of the most sophisticated and serious instances. Cybersecurity, therefore, is a global common, like weather, climate, environment, and the pandemic, because it is borderless and hence needs to be addressed in an internationally collaborative manner. Now, I was asked to speak on the challenges and the prognosis, and I have identified 7 challenges which are common to all our BIMSTEC nations. The first one is, how do we spread cybersecurity awareness to the large populations that exist in our nations? And now, with the 4th generation of mobile phone, and some countries may have even started the 5th generation, going to the rural areas and the tier 2, 3 cities, it has now exceeded the pace at which awareness and education is being spread. So that is the first challenge. How do we ensure that all those who are part of cyberspace are aware of the cyber hygiene practices? Second challenge is obtaining and sharing cyber threat intelligence, because your cyber safety is totally dependent on the threat intelligence that you are getting and sharing with all your CERT-ins and the Security Operations Center, etc., because that is what is automatically protecting you. So that is the second challenge. The third challenge is, how can we carry out incident response in real time? Because of the large spread of our boundaries and the lack of qualified personnel, including in cybercrime and digital forensics, how do we carry out this incident response? The fourth, of course, as I mentioned earlier, is the growing menace of cybercrime. The numbers are increasing as we speak. The fifth challenge is, how do we protect our critical information infrastructure? And this is important because in the CII, or the critical information infrastructure, there is an element of the cyber physical system also. So the impact of a cyber attack is much more serious when a cyber critical information infrastructure is involved. And there is a discussion going on these days on whether anything is not critical at all. Earlier we said transportation, aviation, energy, financial, these are the critical sectors, strategic, government, etc. But then some recent attacks, for example, in Florida, there was an attack on a water treatment plant. And the attack ensured that the treatment made the water more and more poisonous. Similar thing happened in Israel also. Food has been, one of the areas, food distribution, which has been attacked. So everything today is almost becoming critical, and how do we protect it? The sixth challenge is, as I said earlier, the protection against ransomware and supply chain attacks. The supply chain includes both the hardware and the software supply chain. And you would recall the SolarWinds case that happened earlier this year, where they utilized the trusted means of updates to ensure that the malware was infected in a large number of clients. And finally, how do we protect our digital economy and the progress to ensure that we maintain our rate of growth? Cyber technologies are also evolving continuously, from the Internet of Things to 5G to artificial intelligence to quantum computing, and each advance is accomplished not only by new opportunities but new challenges. So, what is the prognosis of these challenges? So, it requires basically a lot of coordination. There is a requirement of coordination between cyber and the national security agencies and the law enforcement agencies and the judicial processes. An effective and coordinated collective response requires exchanging of information on national strategies and policies. Then there is a need for consultative frameworks and which are required for confidence building. And then enhanced information sharing on the ICT security incidents is also very important. For sophisticated attacks like ransomware, it has become need of the hour to build mechanisms to strengthen network security and resilience. Counter illicit finance, mainly the cryptocurrency-based finance in the dark web. Then how do we disrupt the ransomware networks which are being used by these cyber criminals? And how do we promote rules-based behavior through diplomatic engagement? Fortunately, this year, some of you may be aware, in the United Nations, there has been consensus in both the open-ended working group as well as the UN group of government experts on the norms of responsible behavior in cyberspace. So that is good news coming in from the global front. As committed by the BIMSTEC National Security Chiefs during the meeting held in August 2018, India organized a workshop on cybersecurity for BIMSTEC member states in December 2018, which resulted into adoption of a roadmap for BIMSTEC cybersecurity cooperation. The principles of this roadmap were agreed by the BIMSTEC nations are actually the prognosis to these challenges. The principles aim at strengthening the regional cooperation on security in the use of ICT by several measures, which include developing mechanisms for sharing of information on cyber threats, malware, and cyber incidents, identify areas of cooperation in various aspects of cybersecurity, including capacity building, establish a BIMSTEC CERT to CERT cooperation mechanism, share experiences and best practices for the protection of critical information infrastructure, strengthen law enforcement cooperation to address cybercrime, cyber terrorism, and cyber security, develop a BIMSTEC perspective on international cyber issues such as internet governance, cyber norms, data sovereignty, data protection, and privacy, work together on developing voluntary norms of responsible state behavior in cyberspace to ensure an open, accessible, secure, stable, peaceful, and equitable ICT environment, and encourage cooperation among stakeholders, including government, private sector, civil society, and academia, for exchange of expertise, joint research, workshops, and seminars, and promote capacity building and skill development in the areas of cybersecurity, and finally, hold BIMSTEC cybersecurity workshop annually on voluntary and rotational basis as a regional forum to discuss various aspects of cybersecurity cooperation. So unfortunately, and probably because of the pandemic, we have not been able to hold this annually since the last one was in December 18. But what I'm trying to say is that these principles encompass all the actions that we had discussed earlier. So with the current membership of 7 countries in BIMSTEC, we have achieved notable progress in 14 areas of cooperation. The time has now come to expand the areas of cooperation in BIMSTEC and add cybersecurity as one of the areas to strengthen the regional cooperation. In the end, I would like to say that challenges in cyber domain are boundaryless, which need to be tackled in a collaborative manner. We need to play cybersecurity as a team sport for having regional cooperation and collaborations and shared responsibilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, General Pant, for this very clear articulation. Thank you for listing out the challenges and finally pointing out the principles. I think these principles will be critically important in the way we move forward in the region, especially highlighting what is required in terms of regional capacity building, skill building with private and public partnership, developing mechanisms for sharing information on various cyber incidents, possibly also strengthening investment cooperation in cyber area. I think these are important areas which you have highlighted and mentioned. But I think also very important would be how, in the regional context, we can harmonize the legal frameworks of BIMSTEC states to deal with this very transboundary nature of cyber security. So thank you very much, General Pant. You bring into the table a rich experience from military operation point of view, from an academic understanding of what cybersecurity is, and also in sense of corporate governance. So thank you very much. Pleasure listening to you. And we have some time, about 10 to 15 minutes. Is that correct, the host?
Yes, Dr. Sinha, we do have 10-15 minutes, precisely 15 minutes.
Yes, we then must pick up some questions from the floor, from the audience. And I'm sure General Pant would like to respond to it.
So just to help you, Dr. Sinha, there
Yes.
is already a question in the chat box from one Mr. Soham Roy, who makes an observation and puts a question at the end. And he says, solid accountability, transparency, and risk mitigation mechanisms are the essential minimum in order to benefit from the socioeconomic benefit of 5G without jeopardizing national security. There are allegations that cellular network equipment sourced from Chinese vendors may contain backdoor enabling surveillance by the Chinese government. So how BIMSTEC is going to tackle the cyber threats from Huawei and 5G technology of China?
General Pant, would you like to respond?
Yeah, sure. And thank you, Mr. Sohan Ray, for a very relevant question. And, you know, it is something that is being discussed as we speak. So the endpoint is a very important part of cybersecurity. In this case, the endpoint that you're talking of is the mobile phone, whether it is 5G or 4G. The vulnerabilities are there. In fact, we once analyzed a smartphone and found that there were about 15 different attack vectors which are present in a smartphone where the cyber attacks can come. And when I say an attack vector, I mean what is the operating system of that smartphone, what is the processor being used in the smartphone, what are the memory chips, what are the communication means in terms of Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, etc. Because just for information, if your Bluetooth is on and there is a cyber criminal who's crossing you on a mall or on a shop, then the malware can do that Bluetooth connection also. In addition, what are the bundled apps which are there when you buy a phone? Some apps are already bundled, which you cannot delete. They are, part of the deal with the manufacturer. And then what are the apps that you have downloaded? So there are, as I said, about 15 different apps. So we have also heard what you're saying about the backdoors, etc. But there are ways to prevent it. And we are in our scheme of things, we are also trying to make an app, because these phones are going to be used by, as I said earlier, in the rural areas, in the tier 2, 3 cities also. So we are thinking of creating an app, a trusted app, which you can download in your mobile phone, and that will, scan all your phones and the apps, etc., and then keep sending you messages in the language, in the regional language that you would prefer, and then tell you that please take care of this vulnerability, or you have left this open, etc. Just to cater for any of those things, and it will also ensure that the apps that are downloaded are safe and they are genuine apps. So this is a, endpoint security is a very important aspect, because even if you have, as I said earlier, made in whichever country you feel is trusted endpoint, and then you download an app from where the malware comes, still you'll be prone. So there is, the vulnerabilities will continue to exist. You cannot have 100% security. That is why today the most important thing is cyber hygiene and the need to ensure, good cyber hygiene practices. From the Indian side, as far as the network part is concerned, besides the endpoint, you have the access point, and then you have the total telecom network. The government last year in December, we approved a national security directive on the telecom sector. And what we've done in that is that from June 15th of this year, any equipment that is going to be connected to the telecom network of India is going to be a trusted product from a trusted source. So that entire procedure and the process has been made. There is a portal called trustedtelecom.gov.in, in which anyone means a telecom service provider, if he wants to buy any equipment, then he uploads the details of that particular company and that equipment. And then we have a process at the back end where we carry out our checks as to who is the ultimate beneficiary of that particular company. And even in the hardware, we are checking up to the semiconductors as to where are the chips coming from. And in the software, also we are seeing who is making those software modules. So it is a very difficult task, because these vendors, for example, big companies like the Dell and the Intel and the Cisco's, they have about 10,000 tier 2 and 3 suppliers. So we have to go into a lot of details to ensure that the trusted product is really a trusted product. So we've catered for the network part. The endpoint, as I said earlier, the mobile phone is not part of this because the policy that we have implemented caters for the license conditions. So the telecom service provider is a licensee, and he's bound by what we say. When I say we, means the Department of Telecom is the licensor. So in the license conditions, we have added that you will have to buy a trusted product from a trusted source. But the phone is being bought by the individual from the open market. So there we cannot force that particular individual that you can only buy this phone and you cannot buy that phone. So that is the additional angle that is involved. But the more important thing is to ensure that the security is maintained in whichever phone you buy and you follow the best practices. I think that should answer your question.
Thank you. Dr. Sinha, would you like to put in some input? Please kindly unmute yourself, Dr. Sinha.
Sorry about that. No, I was very intrigued by what the general just said, highly illuminating. I think what the pandemic has also shown us is that the more and more we start using technology, I think it would be equally important for us to initiate certain norms which are sort of safe in the manner in which it is used. And here I think important would be to have curriculums at a very early stage in the growing mind be placed so that the awareness level on cybersecurity and the risks associated with it are clearly spelled out to the generation that is going to grow up and be in this very interactive world. So is awareness an important element of cyber safety, General? Would you like to illuminate a bit on that? This was my personal question to you.
If I may also substantiate from here, Dr. Sinha's input, now that we are moving in cyberspace, the more of the interactions, given the pandemic situation, including the whole new generation getting educated in the online, and it has its own kind of problems, We all have children at home. We all have young generation. I have a couple of young generation people sitting here, and who are using online for required, kind of interactions that are needed academically, but at the same time, they're also using them for other entertainment and extracurricular activities. So where is the mean line? Where is the awareness? Whether they are becoming, how, if their privacy has been encroached, how will they, handle these kind of threats which may seep in from unknown? So how does one handle, as a naive person, I would also be very curious to know, sir, that what can be done, or what are the mechanisms that are being available by the state to this kind of unforeseen threat in this pandemic situation?
Yeah, so both of you have raised a very important issue of cybersecurity, education, and awareness. So there are some incidents that are taken before an incident takes place. There are some actions taken before an incident takes place. Some actions during an incident and some after the incident. So education and awareness is one of the main actions that is a preventive action. The other actions before an incident are the cyber audit and training.
Question.
So coming back to the education awareness, at least in the Government of India, we have ISA program, ISEA, the Information Security Education and Awareness Program. It is a huge nationwide program which has been outsourced to CDAC, which is an agency under the MIT, Ministry of Electronics and IT. And they are the ones who are interacting at the school level, at the level, at the education level, and ensuring that there is a continuous syllabus and a progressive education from the cybersecurity point of view. But coming to what ma'am was saying about our children, my personal opinion is that we have to develop good cyber hygiene habits. In today's digitalized world, there are only two mantras for survival: physical hygiene and cyber hygiene. Physical hygiene for what is going around all around us, and cyber hygiene for the cyber world. And all of us today spend definitely some time in the cyber world, whether it is through the mobile or laptop or some device or gaming, etc. And I was surprised to see the gaming figures the other day as to how much time children are spending in the games these days. So having also brought up a child, I feel that the better way is to make them realize as to what are the dangers in the cyber world. Because if you try and say that you will not spend more than 3 hours a day, then what he does within those 3 hours could also be dangerous. So it's very difficult to force children to do things. It is better to make them understand that, expose them that if you do this, then these are the dangers, that the cyberbullying may take place, cyber stalking may take place, you may lose money, etc. So both at the home and the school, these two things are very important. And sometimes they fall for peer pressure, etc. So we have to be careful about that. So I think that this, at least for the children and the teenagers who are being exposed to this world, we have to be very careful, continuously educate them. There is a new concept coming out in Europe by Facebook. I was just reading 2 days back, called Metaverse. Some of you may have also read that Google, Facebook is now creating an AR, VR sort of a environment, which they are calling as the metaverse. So this will make things worse because the children will be living in a totally artificial environment. I belong to a generation which has come up in playing games and physically traveling to places and meeting people and that sort of a generation, and that is important from the emotional quotient point of view. So if we do not step in and ensure that their growth is not only IQ and this thing, we have to make them well-rounded personalities. This is very important that we expose them to good cyber hygiene habits and ensure that it is followed in their own. And that is my personal take.
Absolutely. Very well said, I think. Appropriate behavior, norms to be practiced, the hygiene issue. This is something very interesting to have cyber hygiene. I think these would be elements that will create a better understanding and awareness of how we interact and engage in this very cyber world that we're living in. Are there any further questions?
Yes, Dr. Sinha, we're really edging on time, but since this is a one-time opportunity to interact
Yes.
with Pantji, so there is another question which is of extreme relevance, I think, and I would like to take your permission to place it before him. Glenn Shetlayer puts a question which says that given the high rates of cyber attacks and cyber wars, both manifest and hidden, can we foresee a cyber curtain to protect the region and its overall geopolitical and economic security?
Glenn, I think that's another good question. You may have heard that in some countries, they're already talking of concepts like the cyber dome. Israel is one of those. Because what is happening is that the private sector, which is also part of the critical information infrastructure, some of these private sector companies are being subjected to attacks which are almost state-backed attacks. So you can't expect a private sector to defend itself against the resources of a state-backed attack. So that is why the government has to step in. That is why PPP is so important in cybersecurity, and the government has to step in. And one of the ways of stepping in is to ensure that at all the ingress points. I mean, what does a cyber curtain mean? What it means, let's say in India today, there are 200 internet gateways of all the telecom service providers. This is from where the internet comes into the country. So at all these 200 gateways, you put some probes which are seeing every packet. There are ratios that you see 1:1, 1:100 sort of. And then without seeing the content, there is the header which is called the metadata. So you only see the metadata of the packet, and from that itself, a lot of information comes out, including from which port it is coming, to which IP address it is going, etc. And that is how a lot of these attacks can be prevented. For example, if you suddenly find a lot of packets going on to one particular address, then you say that this particular client can be subjected to a distributed denial of service attack. Somebody is trying to attack him by flooding him with packets. I'm just giving one example. So this is what an cyber iron curtain sort of thing would do, and that is done by most nations as part of our national architecture. It is also that we have kept it as one of our future plans. So that is absolutely fine. The scale at which the attacks are taking place, we will have to ensure that, like we have 5 domains today: land, air, sea, space, and cyber. While we have land, air, and sea border protected, cyber border also need to be protected. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very well explained. I think we have, come to the end of this very interesting session. And I must compliment the Institute of Social and Cultural Studies for having thought about this special lecture. And I thank you, General Pant, for having taken time out and to share your thoughts. your experiences on this. This is a critical issue, critically important, I think, for regional cooperation. Of course, fundamentally, it does bring into a fact that it will require a lot of sharing of information, and I think the countries in the region would have to step up their efforts, go at times beyond the narrow confinement of politics and lesser interest, and think in terms of larger cooperation on this very critical risk, which is quite high, obviously. And we should form a certain cooperation, a certain forum in which we can be far more engaging to reduce and mitigate the risks that might emanate. So thank you very much, General Pant, and thank you, ISCS, for having organized this. I hand over to the host of the session.
Thank you, Chair, and a special thanks to Lieutenant General Rajesh Pantji, who has been so busy, but who has put forward points which are so relevant for our regional cooperation. And I hope so that in the upcoming summit, cybersecurity as a part of non-traditional security will find extreme relevance and shall be put as a part of a sectoral cooperation as we want to rationalize the 14x7. We hope that that will become, because it is extremely important. And as the chair said, there is some amount of sharing to be done, some amount of understanding to be done, and we have to look beyond for geopolitical considerations, yet for geopolitical considerations, we have to get our act together. There has to be a whole lot of rationalization, legal framework put in place. So with these words, we thank you on behalf of the organizers for your time and for your thoughtful ideas, inputs. We will end this session before we break for lunch. Thank you once again.